So, I think I lost them. But in case I haven't, if this is the final time that I speak with you, I gotta get something off my chest. Do you know what really annoys me? Do you know what really grinds my gears? It's when people use the term reboot and remake as if they are the same thing, because they're totally not. Now, true, both reboots and remakes are emblematic of Hollywood's lack of creativity, but they are two totally different things. So a remake is when you make another movie that has already been done before. Usually this is because Hollywood is too afraid to come up with a new idea that may cost them money, so they decide to go the safe route and do something that was a crowd pleaser in the past. But most of these movies are basically a one-shot. They're not really meant to have sequels. They might get a sequel if that movie does really well, because if something does well, Hollywood goes, oh, they did it once, they'll come back again. But generally speaking, they're sort of one and done. A reboot is when you have a popular franchise, a series of movies that have had many sequels, but has now begun to lose some of its shine. And the thought being that this franchise still has name recognition, it still has value. It has lost some of that value, but if they go and they retool it, if they go and they fix it up a bit, perhaps they'll be able to reclaim some of its former glory. Now, the easiest way to do that is to start over from scratch, but you don't have to do that. Several films have been rebooted without actually starting over again. The Godzilla franchise has been rebooted several times, with all the new series being sequels to the original 1954 Godzilla. The most recent franchise that has done this type of reboot has been Jurassic Park, with Jurassic World being the sequel to Jurassic Park. Now, while I don't explicitly contradict anything that happens in Jurassic Park 2 and 3, they certainly don't mention them. So it's as if they never happened. Sometimes, though, there exists a movie that I can't tell whether it's a reboot, a remake, or a sequel. Case in point is the recent Curse of the Blind Dead. When I initially saw the trailer, I thought this movie was going to be a remake, or maybe a reboot. And it started off like it was a remake. You had the Knights Templars performing some sort of satanic ritual, only to be caught by the local villagers. The knights are tried, blinded, and then burned at the stake. And then something happened that I didn't see coming at all. It all of a sudden became a live-action version of The Last of Us. So yeah, you heard me right. Most of this movie takes place in the post-apocalyptic future. There's some sort of plague, it kills off most of mankind. The movie's a little vague on the details. At any rate, after the flashback with the Knights Templar, we are in the future, we're in the woods somewhere, you have a father and his pregnant daughter. They're on a quest to find some sort of outpost. They've heard a radio message. Apparently there's no plague there. It's good living, so they're trying to find it. And they have a run-in with some real bad dudes. They get rescued by another group. Is this group good? Is this group bad? Who knows? They don't trust them that much. This group seems to live in some sort of abandoned monastery. And it just so happens that they worship whatever it was that the Knights Templar were doing. In fact, they're trying to recreate that ritual that we saw in the beginning of the movie. So they have a keen interest in the father's pregnant daughter. And if that isn't bad enough, deep in the catacombs of this monastery are the zombified versions of the Knights Templar. Basically, I enjoyed the movie. I thought it was paced well, it never really got boring. I'm not certain if I necessarily needed the post-apocalyptic element of the movie, but I didn't dislike it either. Most of the movie takes place in the catacombs in the monastery, and it gives it sort of a claustrophobic feeling, which I thought worked well in the film. I think the knights looked really good. I was really impressed with the makeup for the Blind Dead. I was impressed with the makeup in general. One thing I liked about the movie's special effects was they were practical effects. I think most Hollywood movies rely too much on CGI. I think practical effects are more visceral, and they also give the actors something to react with. CGI sometimes in low-budget films or foreign films or low-budget foreign films isn't very convincing. Even when a practical effect isn't convincing, it's something you had to build, you had to make. So I have a lot more respect for it than something that I think some guy just didn't take enough time to draw on his computer. Curse of the Blind Dead is a 2020 movie directed by Raffaele Picchio, who is probably best known for The Blind King, House of Evil, and Moratorious. It is the 5th installment in the Blind Dead series. The original Tombs of the Blind Dead came out in 1972. The last movie, which was called Night of the Seagulls, came out sometime in the 80s. So it's been like over 30 years since a Blind Dead movie came out, which is one of the reasons why in the beginning of this video I was saying I can't tell if it is a remake, a reboot, or a sequel. Now, I was first introduced to the Blind Dead series when I caught the original Tombs of the Blind Dead on an episode of Elvira's Movie Macabre, and I was fascinated by the movie. One of the things I was fascinated about the movie is, even though it's obviously a work of fiction, it had a small nugget of truth in it. The Knights Templar were a real order of knights who were excommunicated and put to death. And I'm not the only one who has been fascinated by this, because the Knights Templar have popped up again and again in works of fiction. The Knights Templar appear in the video game series Assassin's Creed. The Knights Templar are mentioned in best-selling books and blockbuster movies like The Da Vinci Code. One of the interesting things about the original Tombs of the Blind Dead is, like many low-budget European horror films of the day, it was re-edited and released in America under several different names. The most interesting one for this particular movie was in 1978. Tombs of the Blind Dead was released as Revenge from Planet Ape. You see, the distributors were trying to cash in on the success of the Planet of the Apes movie, and all they did to alter Tombs of the Blind Dead was they removed the Knights Templar flashback, and they filmed a small prologue before the beginning of the movie.
Legend has it, almost 3,000 years ago, a simian civilization of super-intelligent apes struggled with man to gain control of this planet. In the end, man conquered ape after a brutal battle, which saw him destroy the ape, his culture and society. After this battle, man tortured and killed all the ape prisoners by piercing their eyes with a red-hot poker. One of the prisoners, who was also the leader of the apes, vowed they would return from the dead to avenge man's brutality at a point in time before man destroyed Earth himself. That time is now.
Now, according to the description on the box, this was to take place in a dystopian future. Although, if this was a dystopian future, apparently that future consists of quaint tourist traps and posh hotels for people to visit, and of course, undead knights. So I guess it would be sort of a Donald Trump version of a dystopian future? I don't know. And that's the question. Is it a remake? Is it a reboot? Or is it a sequel? Now, I guess if you want to count Revenge from Planet Ape, which supposedly takes place in a dystopian future, and Curse of the Blind Dead definitely takes place in a dystopian future, then I guess yes, Curse of the Blind Dead is a remake. You could say it's a reboot because they take a lot of liberties with the concept. And it could, because it takes place in the future, literally just be a sequel. There is nothing in Curse of the Blind Dead that necessarily contradicts anything that happened in the previous movies. Of course, there's nothing in Curse of the Blind Dead that connects it to the previous movies, other than all the movies have undead knights in them. So, what was that? Every single bone in my body tells me I shouldn't answer that door. But you know what? I feel lucky, so I'm going to answer that door.
Hello.